Okay, welcome to another episode of Love Tribe. Today we're going to talk about spiritual warfare and its connections to suicide ideation. But before we get into that, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And also check the Show More section if you want to contribute to the growth of this channel and this movement. Love Tribe is about making enlightenment a trend. That's nature playing its role here for us. Make enlightenment a trend, spiritually enlighten and awaken people so they can make better choices, have better perspectives, and renew their mindset. And also glorifying our differences so that we can come together in a way of putting forth unconditional love regardless of our differences. So today we're going to talk about the presence of spiritual warfare and its connection to suicide and suicidal rates, not just in the United States, but at a global level. We right now notice statistics such as 700,000 people a year are committing suicide. That's one person every 40 seconds deciding to end their life. Definitely, needless to say that while this is happening, we're also seeing a decline in religious and faith-based practices around the world. Even though Christianity is number one globally, especially in the United States, we're still seeing a decline in how many people actually practice some kind of religious, faith-based activity. But before we get into that, I want to introduce you to my spiritual expert today that's going to share some insight from their perspective and their experience. And I'm going to have her share a little bit about herself. This is Arlette Marin. Thank you so much for being here, Arlette.
Carla.
I appreciate it. Before we get into the topic, I want you to tell our viewers a little bit about your background. What have you worked in? Where do you come from? And how did you acquire, or when did you acquire the spiritual enlightenment that allowed you to see life differently?
Hi, my name is Arlette Marin. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Carla, for having me over and participating from your podcast.
Oh, always. I'm excited. I'm happy you're here. Thank you. Arlette said that, she's here because she loves me. So I said, I have to get everybody to fall in love with me to come to my show. That's kind of hard.
She's my friend, and it's a funny story how we met, but I'm very shy. So definitely, not much of coming into a camera and being on a microphone.
Oh, so this is like a first time
yes,
for you?
Yes, this is the first time.
Oh, wow, oh my God. I have the honor.
The honor,
Thank you.
yeah, exactly.
So tell us about your background. What is your background professionally?
I work in an insurance company at the moment. I also do a lot of spiritual work. I've been spiritual since I was 7 to 8 years old, actually. And I've been writing a lot on Facebook and some parts on Instagram. And I also was a teacher for 17 years, more than that actually. I would say, 20-something years.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught little children all the way up to 12th graders. And I moved to Netherlands, so actually I worked here in the United States and I worked also in the Netherlands, partially here in the United States.
Right. Did that experience with children put you at the forefront of developing like mentor-like relationships?
I have had the pleasure and honor to work with a lot of children that were sort of abused, because abuse is a little bit a big word.
Right.
Verbally abused, sexually abused, and people who have had many thoughts that confronted them spiritually,
right,
in order to commit suicide or something like that. So it's very tragic. It's very sad to see children have to go through that. I also have had the opportunity to meet a lot of other people, young adults who are going through stages that can end up in a bad term. I don't know how
right.
would you say that.
Before we get into that, at what age would you say you became spiritually enlightened or spiritually aware, like more connected spiritually, not religious based, but
I think 8 years old.
At 8?
8.
What led to that happening? If you want to share a little bit.
I am a prayer. I love praying, and I'm very connected to God. That is my thing. I'm going to say it that way. What led to that? I think my brother had an accident when I was young, and I think that kind of inspired me to be more connected to God. I suddenly started praying for 3 days, and this voice just kept on saying what was going to happen, the events and everything that was. It was sort of like a timeline of events of what was going to happen, and then as the days passed, the things happened.
Right.
You know, as what I heard, and after that, I think I don't know. I that's how it opened. That's how I started being aware of many things.
Okay.
I also was part of an accident, and then through that accident, which is you were in common.
Yes.
You and I in that.
Yeah, I spoke in a previous episode about my near-death experience.
Yeah.
So if you want to check it out, go to my channel. You'll find it. But tell us a little bit about yours.
Yeah, well, I had an accident, and I had a huge crystal thing of my mom. We were like 6
Like a
feet
decorative
old.
piece?
Yeah, decorative for the lamp. And I was sitting in the back with my aunts, and it was a big car, and we were all sitting, and suddenly a car crashed in, and he went underneath my car, underneath the car that the person was driving. And it was an instant moment of a white light that I remember, because I thought, oh my gosh, you know, that moment that a car crashes into yours and you think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
Right.
I remember the ball was being sustained or held by some kind of white light. Couldn't define what it was. For me, it was an angel. I believe very much in angels. And,
Right.
By the time that everybody got off the car in the accident, in the moment, I just walked out of the car with the crystal ball thing, the crystal lamp.
Like it didn't even shatter.
It wasn't shattered. It wasn't anything. And then by the time I made it out of the car and put it on the ground, it shattered completely. So whether it was, you know, I mean, for me, it was God that sent an angel to prevent that.
Right.
I was very young. I think it was in the same range of age that I was there. 7 years old.
Okay.
And my brother's thing was at 8. And it was interesting because when you come out, and like you said, you know, you saw this angel that came out and just pulled you out of the car and made you feel that moment. It was for me the same thing. You
never see life the same way after that. It's impossible.
No, I don't think you see. Yeah, it is. It's impossible. You start appreciating things, and as you become spiritually aware, it just becomes brighter. You get to see everything in a different way, in a different perspective.
Right. Okay. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Well, today we're going to talk about the rise in suicide and its connection, what we know, what we understand, being enlightened spiritually, to spiritual warfare. I do want to point out some facts. Neuroscientist Newberg wrote in his book, How God Changes Your Brain, that we do have a set of neurons in our brain that when given the opportunity to experience worship, prayer, and meditation regularly, those neurons will be stimulated, and those neurons have the ability to suppress feelings and thoughts of depression, anxiety, and negativity. So the more we practice meditation, prayer, and worship of some sort, connected to some faith-based orientation that we may follow, it does have the ability to suppress the negativity that mentally could lead a person down a path of, you know, even terminating their own life. So that's a big plus. Dr. Newberg is long known nationally for his studies in neuroscience, and globally also for his studies in how the knowledge of neuroscience helps us understand how God changes the brain for the person. So let's get into suicide. Do you think there has been a rise in suicide cases as of recent?
I do believe so.
What do you, in your opinion, what do you think is part of that cause?
Yeah, for me, it's more spiritual. I believe that there is there's a lot going on, and what I call spiritual, I mean that we're visited by so many spirits, and what does that mean?
Right.
Being sad, depression. It means anger. It means a bunch of these little tiny things that confront us every day.
Mm-hmm.
So we wake up and we're angry. We don't want to do this and we don't want to do that, and basically, that spirit comes and I'm lost.
Emphasizes it. Does it enhance that? Does it enhance that for you? Does it enhance for that person?
Okay, so for my perspective here, because I believe that I believe very much in the children, Carla. And what happens is that when you grow up in a circumstance, therefore family values and morals are very important.
Right.
You grow up and you have all these circumstances. You're bullied at home. You're bullied at school. Any type of situation that you're confronted with words or things that people are not nice with you accumulates.
Mm-hmm.
This accumulates in your heart, and as you keep on growing, as you keep on going through life, more and more comes upon. And by being able to save that, like a computer, you just type, and then you save it, and it keeps on going and going and going and going, and finally you can release it or you don't.
Right.
The same happens to your human heart. Like, you can take up to so much. And then with the pandemic, basically everything that was accumulated, and most children, most teenagers, even adults,
And then people were isolated for a long
people were
time.
isolated for exactly. Then people didn't get to vent. I don't know if that's the right word to say, to vent it out, to speak it out, and to say something about what happened. And children most of the time don't even have time to vent it out either, because mom is working, dad is working, they come home, they're very tired, you don't have time.
Or there's no mom, or there's no dad.
Or there's no mom, or there's no dad, and they don't have anybody to talk to. And basically, you're a teacher, which I admire very much. As a teacher, you can come up and you have your teacher you can speak to. But what is the responsibility of a teacher? Is the teacher to work with parents to understand what's going on? And all these triggers, because they are triggers, come to a point that you feel tired. That
So would you say
enough?
Would you say the feeling of what you're talking about, feeling tired, is that what leads the person to feeling like just putting an end to it?
I think that everything accumulated, not only feeling tired, but everything that is accumulated, and that you're done with what you've done with this, and you're done with that, and everything just starts to pop up. My parents treat me like this, and my life has been like that, and now this is happening here, and everything accumulates until the point that you say, hey, it's done.
Right.
Why would I stay in this world when I have so many problems? What is, the circumstance, for example, of a person who just passed away, and
how did they pass away?
They took their life. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but
right.
It is an accumulation of what they live and how they I don't know how you say this, but everything that is in your heart, and you just come to that point that I was saying before. It's going into a circle, sorry.
No,
But
it actually is not, because in science, psychologists have already concluded, through many different studies over different decades, that not all of our thoughts are our thoughts. And New Age guru people that write out a lot of how-to books actually write in many of their books that your thoughts are not your thoughts. You control your thoughts. Your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. To your brain, it's the same thing. That's why you can go to a theme park, you go on these rides, and before you even notice, you're actually believing that the ride is real life. Go on the Mummy ride, and I think it's in Universal Studios. Go on the different rides they have in Universal Studios. Go on a roller coaster that you pay for. You pay for that experience. That experience has a beginning and an end. That's, controlled. And yet when you are in it, the amount of fear that rises from your brain that makes you scream and makes you feel exhilarating at the same time, you can't control it. Because your brain doesn't know that it's fake 100%. So your brain will let out that reaction, and you have to scream. You end up showing some form of excitement from that experience.
Well, I think that everything has to be put outside of what is going through your body. I mean, your thoughts, your mind, your heart, your soul, they're all connected. And in a way, you know, it's like a roller coaster. You have your ups, you have your downs. You can go up, you can go down, and then suddenly you go through this path that you think, okay, you know, I've done my ups, I've done my downs, and then suddenly, and I think one of the best cases is your case. Your case, because
Okay.
you, as a person, we all, because I don't say
Right.
that doesn't mean that you are going to suicide or I'm going to suicide, but and then that this is
No, it's okay.
Oh
It's
my
fine.
gosh, no, this
This is an authentic channel. We're not.
yeah.
We're gonna keep going.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's okay. I don't have a problem being used as a case study because I believe that people sometimes are afraid to bring forth what happens in their life authentically because they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid of what other people think.
Yeah.
They like to live a life that's always like, I'm above others, I'm above everybody else. And just yesterday I saw a post of someone saying, someone wrote this on a post that seemed really wonderful. They were like, you know, you worship the universe and I worship the one that made the universe. We're not the same. And, you know, if you're not attentive, you'll actually look at that and be like, yeah, I don't worship the same thing as you do. That in itself is creating a division. And anything that creates division is not love. So even the people who are trying to say who they do and do not worship, that one is better than the other, that's not love. And if it's not love, it's not creation.
I mean, and you know me.
Yeah.
I believe completely in God. I'm a person who prays. I'm a person to everything, but I believe that if I come and visit you, because we've had this conversation before,
Yeah.
I am not the person to tell you, hey, I'm going to transform you and make you a Christian, or I'm going to take you to church to be a Catholic, or I'm going to take you out of India and not let you meditate. No, I think that we all have our belief.
Right.
You know, whether I believe in God and you believe, I don't know, in whatever you want to, you believe in, I'm going to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to preach to you. I will tell you the reason my life has changed, the reason why I became so balanced, because I think that it made a difference for me, and I'm going to use it as a testimony for you.
Right.
Whether you decide, I don't know, to get baptized, to receive a seal, to do, you know, whatever I can offer to you.
So you're saying that our life experiences serve as testimony for others?
Of course.
Okay, that's good.
I think your life is a huge testimony. In my life, I've lived so many testimonies.
I will say this, that I mentioned in depth my testimony of my car accident, and basically how that led to my spiritual salvation. But I didn't profoundly go into in that testimony explain the reason why the accident even took place the day that it did, and it took place on a day that I was going to come home and actually end my life. I was going to overdose on something. That's the truth, you know. And I think that people walk their walk of life, and I'm talking about adults specifically now. I'm not talking about children yet. But adults, they have already either had thoughts of putting an end to their life, or they're thinking about it, and there's a lot of shame tagged to the idea of a person who thinks that way. And I think that putting shame on that person, or putting shame on that concept, only increases the likelihood that the person will commit suicide.
Exactly.
Because they don't seek help. And
it's not only about, like, for example.
But wait, let me finish.
Sorry,
No, it's okay. It doesn't make sense what I said, and I'll forget it. My experience and the fact that I had the accident before I got home and did the worst. My experience was to be shown that I needed to forgive myself. I needed self-forgiveness in order to go back to a more joyful life, and that life being joyful has nothing to do with material wealth or material physical position in societal norms. What does that mean? I don't need to be in a position of power to feel like my life is joyful or to feel important. Maybe that's the reason why I found a new passion for my career, as opposed to constantly wanting to get out of something that's probably my purpose, get out of it because, I should be in the celebrity world, or I should be a model. I've been told that, I've been said that, I've been offered some gigs related to that. But I'm not attracted to that, specifically after my experience, because you come to the realization that that's not what's going to make your life joyful. And my situation also showed me almost every single person has thought of ending their life, or they're about to think about it, or they will think about it. And walking around with this mentality of let's make it aware, let's share information about it, but at the same time, people have attached the idea of shame with the idea of suicide, and then the person that is thinking about it, possibly trying to get help, knows that shame's attached to it, and they don't seek help, they don't open up, they don't talk about it, and then they run the risk of being an individual that actually goes through committing the end of their life.
And I think that God put you in such a place, because as a teacher, and having that testimony that you're just giving at this moment, is a major action. Because as a person that you know what people go through and what they have thought, and and there are children that have already approached you, and you've made a difference in their life. And
there's a protocol that's followed, that I have to follow working.
No, of course, but
listen, aside from the protocol, the fact that they come,
there's thousands of protocols in this life,
but the fact that they come to you,
really have to follow the protocols. But the fact that they come to you, yes,
you're already saving them.
I agree that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the fact that they come to you to talk about a certain situation or circumstance makes a difference, Carla.
Yeah,
makes a difference. As a teacher, I used to work for 2-3 schools, and I've had students that have been rejected from other schools because they were not tolerated in the classrooms, or a student who had been abused by his father, and a student who belonged to a gang, and she had to give in because that was the rule to get into the gang.
Right.
And that is something that really can bother your brain, your mind, away, your heart, from being such a lovely girl or boy, and having somebody come and tell you something, or not be tolerated by a teacher or something like that,
right,
or they don't want to listen to you, makes a difference.
I also believe that usually the people that think or have those ideas of terminating their life are usually the people that have like the biggest purpose to fill. Exactly. And something at the spiritual level is trying to make them end their life, so they don't achieve that.
I think they get tired of being bullied, of being different.
But imagine what would happen if every person that's been a hero got tired in the moment that it was the hardest for them. We would have no heroes.
Yes.
So let's get into the spiritual aspect of it. What are the spiritual forces that you think play a role in how a person's mind is affected negatively or positively? What are the spiritual forces that you believe exist?
I'll give you an example of a girl who was supposed to be part of a gang, and in order to conform part of the gang, she needed to do certain things in order to be part of it. And I'm not talking here in the United States. I'm talking
within the country.
South America. But it came to the point that she was angry. She was depressed. She had given her virginity. Her thoughts were on the things that she had to do in order to be part of her group.
Right.
And it came to the point that she sat down and said, I don't want to live like this anymore. So if you don't want to live like this anymore, what's the next step that you have in your thoughts?
You want to end your life.
You can't go to the same school. You got to be switched to another school. And what's going to happen in that other school? Because everybody knows everybody. That's society,
Right.
And what are your options? And when a person at a certain age, for example, 17, 16, comes up to you and sits to you and says, hey, teacher, this is my circumstance, but please don't tell anybody. What is the circumstances that you have the opportunity to change a life? And spiritually, for me, I love that. I mean, if you give me a chance to sit down with a child or with somebody just to talk about it, to kind of, what do you call that? Pick your brain and, let you analyze, pick your heart and start taking out all the, it's like taking a wood. There's a beautiful example on the internet, which is one of the activities that I love doing as well, is you take a wood and you buy a bunch of nails and you take a hammer and you start hammering for every bad thing or worst thing that has happened to you in your
Onto
life.
the wood.
Right, and you start hammering.
That's a good
And
exercise.
then once you're done with all the things and situations that you have gone through, then you start forgiving each one. And how do you do that? You start taking out the nails from the woods. And once you have all your nails out because you've forgiven all those points, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away. It means that the hurt is still there.
Right.
But you have forgiven it. You have given it for me, given it to God.
Right.
And let him be responsible for the things that he's what has been done to you.
But spiritually speaking, what are the spiritual forces you think play a role in us thinking negative
anger.
or positive?
For me, spiritual forces are anger. It means people that hurt you, bullying. All these little tiny.
Would you say it's like good and evil?
What do you mean by good and evil?
Good and evil forces, like God being good. Anything that's from God is good. Whatever is not is the opposite. Negative is evil.
Evil is the person who comes back and tells you you're not nice, you're not pretty, you're chubby. I think I saw Queen Latifah. I think it was.
Okay.
Queen Latifah on one of those shows that they're presenting and like sharing some things about them. And she was saying, "Hey, I'm fat. I was always disqualified because or put aside."
And she's a beautiful woman, by the way.
She's a beautiful woman. And she was like, okay, they told me that I was chubby or fat, or I don't know how you want to say it, that I was this and I was that, and hey, you know what? Guess what? I'm in a different position. I'm an actor. And I think that's beautiful because you shouldn't be disqualified for who you are. You are who you are. And I can, I'll be honest, I changed 3 times my shirt because I've never done this before. I'm sitting right in front of a microphone and I'm doing it for a good friend, and it's funny because
I'm very picky about my hair, and here I am with headphones because I want to make sure I hear the sound right.
I think the best part of a show is when you are natural, when you are free to express what you want to express, and not have to base yourself on certain things. I've watched many things. I think there's what's his name? He's also an actor that I love and I follow. That he's like, hey, you're beautiful. All these messages.
Well, let's talk about, because we're talking about how people become spiritually affected, and you brought up someone from Hollywood. That reminds me of Heath Ledger. Remember Heath Ledger?
Heath Ledger, yeah.
He committed. He didn't commit suicide.
No.
He was an accidental death due to what he was taking in order to shut down or shut off, the mental activity related to the character he was playing. So, would you say that the lifestyle or the Hollywood culture influences the artists a lot more negatively than positively?
I think it's actually funny because today, I scroll down and I take a look at Instagram and Facebook and things like that, and you see a lot of actors speaking about God now.
Yeah.
And before it wasn't like that, it wasn't that situation that people would say God. And I think one of the actors, I can't remember his name because I've seen so many.
Yeah, Jim Caviezel is one of them.
No, he was a Sound of Freedom, but he speaks freely about God.
He's always been a
godly
supporter of that.
Yeah, no, I think it was somebody who's Jew, and it was like you can't. Oh yeah, Malik Mayim.
I think I don't know that actor's full name.
But she is in The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, I know who it is. The
girl, the lady. That's so bad. I'm so sorry. No, but I'm trying to.
You can just say the actress from The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, the actress from The Big Bang Theory.
I think she also has a degree in neuroscience.
Yes.
What does she say? What do you know about her?
So Mayim Balik.
Again, let me just say neuroscience, which is the science behind the proof or the studies that prove that the worship, prayer, and meditation activities stimulate neural activity in the brain that suppresses depression, anxiety, and negative thought patterns.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Mayim, I hope I'm saying her name correctly.
Mayim
Balik.
Balik. Okay. What do you know?
Yeah,
what did she say? What did she share?
So no, I think it was one of her scrolls that she was talking about being Jewish. These the Jewish gentlemen wear their little, I don't know their name of the little cap on the back of their head.
I don't
know. Basically,
they wear a little cap out of respect.
Out of respect, she has a friend. I think she was mentioning that wanted to take it off, that didn't want to wear it anymore
Right.
because of what's going on, the circumstance.
Oh, you mean they were afraid of being like noticed for that?
Yeah, or I don't know whether it's noticed or
Pointed out.
I guess because of what's happening around this world.
Okay.
But I think it's so important that you be who you are. You
Right.
know, try not to not be who you're not. You know, you are who you are.
You're saying at the
Christian,
spirit. You're saying
Catholic,
at the spiritual level.
as a
who you
spiritual
are.
level, or as a person. I mean, I pray with the veil on. Many years ago, you needed to have a veil in order to go to church.
Right. But does that mean
that has another name? I don't know. Remember that?
Does that mean that you feel like everyone should pray with a veil?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that you can go walking around the park and you can pray. I think you can pray in any circumstances when you're lying down in your bed, or you can kneel.
But do you believe? Because my question was, do you believe that there's a distinction between spiritual forces that are good and that are evil? Is there a distinction?
Of course there is.
Okay, that's where I wanted to get, because that distinction is important to understand and accept for us to then connect the hold that spiritual
I
energy
believe
has
that you have a
on
moment
person.
that you're standing in. You can be even lying down, that your thoughts can go very far away. And yeah, if you let that thought go further beyond, then it's going to take you to places that you really don't want to go.
Right.
And it's the same thing as if you're in I don't know, perhaps in meditation or in praying. You can elevate, you can go very far away. You can see a lot of things that you really sometimes don't want to see. So,
Okay.
you know, those thoughts, if you don't know how to control
That would be like
them,
New Age people consider that like astral projection,
yeah,
where they're
and,
able.
and you don't have a way.
Would you consider that safe?
I don't know. That goes beyond my capacity. I mean,
Because some and I've learned this from some Catholic priests and some Christian leaders, that astral projection is not safe because you're basically you're doing a practice that separates your spirit energy from your physical body.
Okay,
And
so
so
I was gonna ask
anything
you,
can
what is astral projection? Because
astral projection is when you're able to meditate to a level and to a point, to an extent where you can literally spiritually exit your physical body. You are still tied to a physical body with a silver cord, because that is a real energetic cord that exists, but your spirit is able to enter and navigate and travel to other places. That's why meditation can be so, for some people, like so ecstatic. It can be for them such an ecstatic, like orgasmic experience, because you get to do things the more you practice it and go places that you physically could never go, and you could even like be in people's presence and see what's going on. And some Catholic priests and Christian leaders have basically identified that as dangerous, because your spirit is not connected to your body 100%. Something can tag in along with your spirit back into your body once you decide to finish your meditation. That's part of the reason why people who are heavy meditators and they live that lifestyle, they are constantly having to cleanse their energy. It's not so much of like, oh, it's a practice I do to show self-love. It's more of they have to do that because their spirit is being latched on to, or things are latching on to them spiritually, because they're astral projecting on their meditation. So then they feel like they have to do this energy cleansing to get rid of the thoughts of anxiety, depression, the thoughts of feeling like they don't have a purpose, or feeling like they're just lost, or feeling like...
Okay, so when you say energy cleansing, what do you mean by that?
They use crystals and sage and certain ceremonies and rituals to do this. Okay. You see? So, but that's another conversation for another day, because they're basically putting forth practices that, to me, in any book that I've read in history related to spiritual practices, that's pagan mentality. That's not necessary.
Well, I don't know.
If you're doing that as a regular...
That goes beyond my capacity.
Think about it. If you are doing that, if you're regularly having to cleanse your energy, then something you're doing in that practice, you shouldn't be in that practice. Imagine having to cleanse your energy every 3 days. I mean, and people could say, oh, but you pray, don't you? Yeah, but prayer is not an energy cleansing. A lot of times prayer is a worship or a showing a form of verbal gratitude for certain things. And maybe you're also asking for some things.
I think it's a little bit separate, because between praying and God, for me, now this is for me, it's because it's like you pray and how can I explain this? This is like more of a, you have the power and authority of God to rebuke everything that is happening to you.
Do you need...
And the minute that you start pacting and connecting with God through prayer,
right,
everything goes away.
So
Your thoughts, you normally when you pray, you will ask God to not let your mind wobble around or wander around. So you ask Him, please keep my mind centered in towards my prayers,
focused,
to focus on my dedication on you. And I'm going to start telling God, what is the circumstance that I'm going through? Hey, this happened to me, and this makes me a little bit upset, and this is what is bothering me, and I'm going to turn it into your hands.
So prayer is not even
and
ritualistic. Prayer is not even ritualistic. It's more of a conversation.
It's a conversation with God.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the topic of suicide. I mentioned how the shame tagged with the topic makes people sometimes not search for help. Also, the guilt attached to the idea of suicide. And guilt could be a two-way street for the person dealing with it, because it could be guilt related to what has led you to think of terminating your life, things that you've done, decisions and choices you've made, things you've been involved in that you have extreme regret for, that you don't forgive yourself for. That can be the guilt. But guilt can also be like, you feel guilty that you even think about that's even in your mind, and that guilt can create a never-ending spiral that only adds to you wanting to terminate your life even more, because now you feel guilty for two things. You're guilty for what you've done that makes you think of doing that, and you are guilty because you're thinking of doing that. So then you're like, I might as well just do that anyway. Why do I bring this up? Because a lot of that guilt, if not all of it, is spiritually attached to entities that don't want you to continue living on. That's what I've seen. That's what my testimony showed me. You know, the purpose is termination, because if you can't be changed spiritually into a person that is cruel, callous, non-compassionate, non-loving, if they can't twist you into an evil person, they'll want the next goal is termination. Think about it.
Yes.
I mean, even in the disciples from the Bible that wanted to preach the word, what did society do to them? Terminated their life. They couldn't be transformed into evil. They couldn't transform and conform to the norms of society and shut up. They weren't going to shut up.
I think that basically when you start, okay, so for example, if you have a person who is going to be in a circumstance like that,
right,
and that person approaches you and you have had that conversation, you know, for my circumstance, I tend to speak a lot about God. Why? Because through prayer, in that moment, you can give into that shame or whatever you're going through, that circumstance, and find peace and balance in your heart. But in order to do that, you have to have that conversation. You have to go through and release what is living in your heart.
Right.
You're not able to change that circumstance unless you really let go of what is happening. Therefore, it's giving in the shame that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And just recognizing yourself that you're a human being, and that we are allowed to go through every single spirit, evil spirit, spiritual warfare, how you want to call it, because it's normal. It's part of life. You have to be angry. You have to go through pride. You have to go through jealousy.
You can't escape it.
How are you going to learn? You know, how are you going to come out of it and to live a better life, to find yourself in balance? I'll give you one spirit. One spirit for me is jealousy. My whole thing is a very bad, terrible thing.
Jealousy nowadays.
Jealousy is a huge spirit.
Why do you say jealousy for you?
When you're married, you know, when you're married, you want to have that person next to you. You'll do absolutely everything for your husband, and that comes into the point of divorce. So this is like a whole, this spiritual warfare is not only about suicide, but it's about divorce,
it's connected to other things.
It's connected to different ramifications, because the minute that a person has gone through, for example, a child has gone through whatever she went through her teenager, she made it, she got married, and then suddenly she got this beautiful husband, and after that she gets divorced, and then that divorce ends up in drugs, and then drugs takes her to suicide, and so on. You know, and it is hard to defeat certain spirits.
It is hard.
So you have to have that balance. That for me is prayer, for others meditation, or whatever it is that you do. Find yourself, you know, go back to that point, and just know that there is somebody in heaven that loves you so much, loves you immensely, you know, that there's a reason and a purpose that you're supposed to be here, and you should go look for that purpose. And if you don't find it, find somebody who can guide you, who's going to open the doors in order for you to be better.
A lot of people will use, especially like pastors, people in the Christian religion, Catholic people, will use the examples of, like, you know, God gave his son Jesus to basically die, to be killed on earth, as proof of how much he loves humanity, right? And people will say, well, we don't know if that existed, that's a biblical story, it could have been hearsay what happened. But Beyond Today magazine has actually published recently an article with more than 30 pieces of evidence, historical pieces of evidence, non-biblical. These are pieces of evidence archaeologists have dug up, or pieces of evidence that historians have found in these areas where Jesus did apparently live and do miracles. And they have found pieces of evidence that directly confirm what's in the Bible. In other words, the characters, the kings, the pharaohs, the Caesars, physical artifacts that even belong to Jesus's family, the actual skeleton of the pigs that at one point certain Jewish people were not following the rules, and they were not just sacrificing them, but they were eating pig. They were eating the pig meat because they had no choice. So, and these things were depicted in the Bible. They were described in the Bible, and they're finding it, and they're publishing it, but it's not given as much notoriety, I guess, because it's not popular to put in the media. But why do I say this? Because when we have a vision of a spiritual entity that could give us something so valuable and allow us to put an end to it, to be like, this is how much I care about you. It's not so much like, oh, well, why would God do that? Like, what a horrible father to allow that for their child. That's besides the point, because as a spiritual creator, it doesn't matter what someone does to you physically, because they got you spiritually. So the physical negativity, it's still it has an impact, yes, but it doesn't matter, because spiritually you're gonna carry on. It's what you keep as a spirit, who you are. So God allowed that to give us physical evidence of how much he loves us. Just like this new age culture now talks about self-love, but they're not really explaining it correctly. They're defining self-love as more of a selfish activity, like put yourself first, and this, you know, take care of yourself first and do things for you, and whatever, with the mentality of you first. But really what self-love is your ability to also know how to love another person. Self-love is not the worship of yourself, which is what New Age is trying to promote, like the worshiping and adoration of yourself as being the most important. So love you first, love, self-love. Self-love is about the love of self, so that you know how to love another unconditionally, because the same thing, you know, goes for God. How would he have been able to prove that he loves us if he didn't have something that could prove that extent? So Jesus was that proof. Why is that important? So we can understand that if something were to let their own creation suffer like that, are you able to do that? If the answer is no, then that's already telling you, well, then you are loved. Like, why are you doubting that you are loved if what created everything created something to be destroyed by us just to give us a physical evidence of self-love? So I explained all this to say that the act of self-love really is proven when you actually do physical acts for yourself that show to your spirit that you love yourself. Such as what? Okay, if I always take my friend out for coffee, and the only time I go out for coffee is when I go with my friend because I'm taking my friend out for coffee, And I love you, Arlette, and I take you over coffee. But self-love in action means I will also take moments where I take myself out for coffee by myself for no reason at all, just because I want to treat myself to that. You know, I'm not putting myself first. It's just self-love is being able to practice what you do for another that's kind, doing it for you as well, because you deserve it to be done for you. Your spirit has to physically see that in action for you to feel like you love yourself.
There's many ways. I mean, I think it's important that you find yourself in your heart first before anything.
Right.
You know, it first comes God, then comes you, but you have to find yourself. You
but
just
now,
can't...
let's connect that to suicide. How do people?
They're not loved.
They feel that they're not loved.
They feel that they're not loved. That they feel that they're left out. That they feel that many things have come and approached their life that that it makes you bring out everything from the beginning to the end.
Would you say, because this is something I've been witness to as a life coach, because I worked for a little bit as a life coach to help people with their mind. Would you say that being stuck in a life that you don't like, even as an adult, because when you're a kid you don't have a choice, and that's, you know, sometimes upsetting, but when you're an adult, having a life set up that now you are completely unhappy with, or you just it's not satisfying to you, would you say that starts to lead towards feelings of feeling that you're not loved?
Of course. You find a lot of people who can come up to you and they seek spiritual advice.
Yes.
And the first thing, at least for me, what God shows me for a person is their soul.
Yeah.
So I tend to look at people very much. And sometimes people may take it right or wrong. But the minute that you start observing that person, their soul, God says, this person is such a loving person.
Right.
This person has a huge heart. This person has this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute that you sit down with that person, you say, okay, this is the circumstances, this is what is being shown, you know, and it is that moment to break that barrier so that you can feel loved, because God loves you.
Right. Because
God sees your soul. God sees your suffering. And He knows from the minute that you were born until the minute of today what you've gone through. So that minute of breaking that barrier and knowing that God loves me kind of breaks that circumstance of coming where you were, I'm done.
Yeah.
To what you said a minute ago, that it can't change, it can't, and then there are people that come and sit down with you and say, it can't be undone. I can't be transformed. This is already it.
Yeah.
You know, and it isn't like that. So it's that, what I'm trying to say is that minute that somebody comes and says, hey, you are loved. You are here because you need to bring a purpose to people so that they know what you lived. That may be because God is like that. He'll put a lot of people that have lived the same circumstances that you have.
Right.
So that you can testify and say, hey, I went through that. I went through that.
Or
and I know.
Or I'm there.
Or I'm there. And I know what you're going through. We can go through this together and we can make it work. But today, and I think Victoria, one of the sisters of the community, was saying, people don't know how to listen anymore.
No.
There is no more listening. It's I want. There is no I need, but there's wants and wants and wants, and I don't care what the rest is doing. I need to do whatever I have to do.
Right.
And we tend to forget that listening is so essential.
So
And so goes for the families. You know, families, you may gather together. We don't want to listen. We don't want to spend time. I'm guilty as well. I have my moments. But it is in that moment that you have to come into balance and say, I went through this before.
Right.
And I want to bring my mind to get back into that shape and come back to reality, you know, of being in balance. there is no room for negativity. There's no room to say, I can't do this. I can't write. I cannot. You know, there are moments that I'm sitting and I'm writing that I completely go blank. And I think, okay, not today. You know, it's not the moment. God doesn't have a word. I'm not going to write it. I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
Why? Because I humble myself. I kneel and I pray, or I'm sitting down and I pray. I'm thinking, okay, this is yours. This is your words. You know, I'm not going to write one word less or one word more than what you don't want me to write.
Okay.
You know? And yeah, you can get overwhelmed about certain circumstances, but you have to put that balance. You have to learn to say, hey, you're my father in heaven, you have my back. You know what you want to do with me. I'm here.
Okay.
Here I am. Use me.
So do you think that
that point gives you a big deal for that moment that you're going through, saying, I don't need to be here. I'm not going to live. I just want to give up on everything. And it's that point where God says, don't. Put your thought in saying, I need to be here. And I have a big secret. It's like when you have all these weird thoughts
Big
and things,
secret.
and you find this idol person that you have that you respect very much, and you put them in your brain, and you think, okay, mind, you're going to think about this person, and this person has done this and this and that, and I admire this person because of what he does. For example, for me, it's a he. But like, you know, and when those thoughts come, have that person in your mind and say, no, I want to be with it like this person. Talk about Keanu Reeves is one of them. I love Keanu Reeves. I admire him. Nothing wrong about that. Just
we love Keanu Reeves in this channel.
Admiration of an actor. But like, you look
He's
at him.
great.
He's a kind, humble man who helps. And he lives his life very simple.
Well, I do want to point out that most Hollywood celebrities that live a more humble, compassionate, gratitude-oriented life, you'll notice they're not on the spotlight.
Exactly. But then again, you have, of course, you go watch, what is it, Top Gun?
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. He's fabulous too, but...
Yeah. But no,
look at what happened with his life.
What I'm trying to say is that if you admire people and you have somebody in particular that you respect, it doesn't matter why you have them in your mind. And your mind has all these negative thoughts. Take that moment and think about that person. Put the image and set yourself in that image and say,
kind of like I always put my mind on in the shoes of Captain Marvel. What would Captain Marvel do?
Exactly.
What would Captain Marvel do?
Yeah.
That's what I should do.
Yeah, and you know, find a narration. I think I had a person who was sort of like a godfather to me, and when I was going through a terrible situation, he came upon my life out of nowhere. I'm going to say God put him in my life because that's for me God done, God's miracle. And you would think this is like a muscle man, and,
right?
You know, a hunkety-tunk person. But this is a person that he was in a wheelchair, paraplegic, and he opened unbelievable doors for me. And that was my motivation, thinking, how can a person own 6 types of business and be as he is and enjoy every single part of his life?
Right.
And I was in his car and I saw everything that they did in order for him to do his necessities and to do everything. And that's where you think, okay, do you really want to suicide yourself when there's other people
living like that and they're happy?
Living and they're happy.
Well,
and they have 6 businesses and they have money and they have children. They even have girlfriends. They have everything. and then you think of like thinking, oh wow, I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have this. My life is like that. And we complain about everything.
Let's not get into that. I don't think a relationship is the end all be all.
No, exactly.
Of
but you hear all these things, and I think I had a call from a friend who's like, yeah, but I need my life to get back together. And I thought, you have everything. This is a lady who lives in South America. She has everything.
Okay.
And she does absolutely everything that you can imagine, spending money just to increase her spiritual side. I'm thinking, all you have to do is kneel and pray.
Yeah, so you're saying that she goes into like different types of activities and things to try to.
And I think, I love her. She's one of my best friends. And
yeah.
I think all have a different perspective of spiritual. And that's what I was telling you before. I'm spiritual. I believe in God. I believe that, as I said before, miracles. I believe that we have to go through healing. I think that when you go through trials and tribulations, it's because you have fallen down and you have to get up again. You know, it makes you stronger, and it gives you fortitude in confronting other things. But, yeah, is there trial? Is there tribulation? Is there a moment that you really have done and said, I've had enough, and that you don't want to do anything anymore? Then that's when you wake up and you say no.
Yeah, you can't let the negativity of your mind win over.
And it's that. It's just that your mind, and you as a psychologist, like, well, I've done psychology. I'm missing actually 4 subjects I can graduate, but there was a little bit of differences on things. But your mind, if you set your mind to do something, if you put that image, that goal, that you want to make it and do something, you can do it.
Yes.
You've got it.
Yes.
You definitely got it. And, you know, for me, I wouldn't say psychology. I think I have my mind set of what perhaps God has for my purpose or what I'm going to do. I wrote 3 books. I don't want to. They're there. They're free. They can be sold. Whatever you want.
I'm putting them in the show more section, so when you guys check it out, you can see Arlette's books that she has published work.
Those were recopilation. ¿Cómo se dice? Una recopilación.
A compilation. Yeah, it's a compilation.
A compilation of all the writings that I did in Facebook, and then I think, where did these writings come from? We've spoken about it.
They're downloads. They're spiritual downloads.
And so, yeah, they are moments that I kneel and I pray.
Sometimes they're testimonies.
Sometimes and what God has revealed. And you put it all together, and I put it in books.
Well, let's get back on track to
Sure.
connecting spiritual warfare with suicide. And we mentioned how guilt and shame are attached to that. Would you say guilt and shame are spiritual forces?
Pretty much, yes. I think so.
Okay, based on experiences you've had, can you share any experience where you've witnessed that or you've helped someone through that? Guilt and shame.
Oh, I was telling you about the girl that the girl that was part of the gang, that she came to a point that she couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
You know, I've had even family members that have, you know, gone through a point that they couldn't take it as well anymore.
Right.
And they wanted to take their life. And you know, and then you got a bunch of compilations of what is drugs, how drugs affect your mind, and how from being a good person you ended up at drugs and then ended up wanting to suicide yourself, you know, because you can't take it anymore. And what the drug does is it enhances your brain to become more and more done with your life.
So it doesn't just give you hallucination, it actually it enhances the feeling of wanting to just stay in a constant high.
The hallucination, sorry, you
yeah.
say that, but the hallucination takes you to a further border of trying to cope with your own problems.
Right.
Right? So, for example, you have, I don't know, there's one that you can, they inject it and they do therapy with it, actually.
Okay.
And what that does is it enhances your body to feel okay with your pain, so you don't have to feel pain.
Oh, morphine?
I don't know if it's morphine. It has a different name, and they use it for therapy. But, like, they inject it into your body. Okay. And they say, okay, we're going to put it in certain places, and that's going to enhance your body to feel better. Of course it is. It's a drug. Mm-hmm. It soothes your pain.
Soothes your pain. It allows you to cope with it better.
Yeah, exactly. It soothes your pain. You cope with the thing. You don't have to talk about it. You swallow it, and if you do talk about it, you're going to cry about it, and then the pain is gone. Okay, so guilt and shame, I guess, could be tagged in the category of being, you know, like spiritual energy, basically. That if you have experiences where guilt and shame don't leave you, you feel like those thoughts don't leave you. Yeah, guilt. Like, it's not you 100%, is what I'm trying to say. No, I think that there's, you know, you can move it. Oh, okay. You can move the mic closer if you want. There used to be this time that you would have these little cartoons that have a devil on one side. Oh yeah, the devil and the angel. And the angel on the other side. The angel says one thing and the devil says another thing. that comes and confuses your mind. So I can tell you a bunch of things, and then based on our conversation that we're having today, for example, then Carla's going to say, oh my gosh, she said this.
Yeah.
And she said that, and she said, but now, oh my gosh, now I have to confront all these things. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go live with this. And no. And then all these things trigger what? Trigger your memory. And then those memories go down to your heart. And then in your heart, you start feeling guilt, and you start feeling shame, and you start feeling, oh, this is not right.
Mm-hmm.
And then your whole week is ruined because you have been thinking about the same thing for the whole week, for the whole month.
That's heavy.
And then it keeps on going and going and going. Why? Because you didn't have a chance to speak to the person.
Yeah.
You didn't speak out.
They may say that there's someone you could go to, or there's this organization, or there's this person, or people could tell you 101 resources to go to. But to be quite honest, if the truth is that society needs to change its mentality when it comes to that and be a little bit more compassionate, so that people can start to get help for this.
It's nothing, I pretty much think that if you
because one person every 40 seconds, ending their life, that's a lot, and it's embarrassing considering the intellectual level that we're able to reach today.
True.
So much information and so much culturally is going on to stick up for rights and for equality and for your identity and all of this. But when it comes to that, it's like they're not addressing a situation that encompasses anyone that's a human. I don't think dividing us is a good idea because it's only going to increase these statistics. When you divide, you isolate. And isolation leads to guilt and shame, confusing your mind, and then leading you to do something like this for yourself.
True. But I also think that there's a lot of people not isolated. There's a lot of people around the world.
Yeah.
That just, they live a normal life, and you don't see a sense of what they're going through. Mm-hmm. It's hard. But
I could say I grew up in Portugal, and I was trying to look up these statistics of like suicidal rates. Not to brag, but Portugal is not on the list.
No, because the life in Europe is more free.
You could also say it.
That's the education, and that's where we come back. This is the part that you come back and say, why?
I only got these thoughts because I grew up in Portugal, but I only suffered and struggled with thoughts of guilt and shame to the point of wanting to end it with my life here in this country. It was not with my life in Portugal.
Because the children are raised in schools that they don't have to go through stress.
Yeah.
And all these things.
The discipline is different too. Like
the discipline and the teachers, how they speak to their children.
The mental health is addressed all the time.
All the time. Exactly.
So you're not
even
isolated.
Work, you might have a person in work that comes back and tells you, hey, I'm having a mental breakdown.
It's true.
I remember a month or two.
I remember having a professor.
I
remember having a professor. She would be 15 minutes late to our class because we would have 1.5 hour to 2 hour class block schedules.
Yeah.
And sometimes she would come 15 minutes late, and we still would have class because the teachers allowed 20-minute grace period to make it to give us class. So we're waiting at the door 15 minutes. She's still not there. She finally showed up. And her explanation to us was she needed to stop to talk with a friend to have a coffee because something happened early in the morning and her mind was just off. And we understood that. And directors in the school understood that. No one lost their job because of that, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's because you're going through a mental breakdown.
And so when we had issues as students, I remember having issues like we couldn't turn in an assignment or get a project done, and we expressed that to her, or to them actually. I had many professors. Guess what? They gave us an extension period. They gave us compassion. Like, I grew up going through school with teachers that gave me compassion regularly, so I know how to apply it.
To you.
But you don't experience that here in the States.
My youngest son, when we moved from here.
But wait, you don't experience that here in the States.
No, it's because, like, as an example, is my youngest son moved from one school to another school here. The teacher he had wasn't so nice. I'm sorry, I love teachers and everything, but they didn't.
But that was a real experience.
They didn't have a click between each other.
That was a real experience.
So, exactly, and then we moved him to another school, and then we happened to move to Holland. And what was funny there was that you tend to find, I don't know how you call that special touch, where a child goes into a school who doesn't speak the language. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have a choice, but we had to put him, and he was at the age to learn that language. And the teacher just took over. Decided to give him special classes individually.
Yeah.
Took the time to teach him the language.
Mm-hmm.
He had a group of friends that gave him all the support that he needed.
Right.
And in 1 year, that child learned Dutch like a snap of my fingers.
And that's in another country.
And I think that was in Netherlands. And I think, oh my gosh, I mean, to learn Dutch and learn other things from the culture
Which is not easy.
It's not easy.
No.
But the gift, the heart, the time, the kindness, the gentleness in which they made that child incorporate to the system, to the language, to the school, made a difference.
Okay. All right, let's talk about, I'm going to ask some stream of questions now related specifically to mental health and suicide mentality to see how we can bridge that with spiritual warfare. Now, spiritual warfare is known, and it's used in movies and in Hollywood several times, even with like the good angel and the little devil on the shoulder concept. Basically, it is the war and the push and pull between good and evil. That's what spiritual warfare is. But more so on the evil side, what does that mean? There is more evil entities trying to mess with everyone's mind on a regular than we acknowledge. See, the fight and arguments and disagreements we have at a physical level with people around us, we're not even having them with the people. It's not, we think it's people arguing with people, disagreeing with people. It's not that. That's an illusion. You know, we need to know how to navigate around that with compassion, so we don't necessarily just go around judging and cutting people off from our life or penalizing them for being different, because we start to understand that we're all spiritually equal, you know? And if you want to be spiritually good, you're going to apply compassion regardless of the scenario. And you may have questions, okay, but what if the scenario is this, or what if this horrible crime happened? All right, well, those are cases that are addressed in a customized way. For every case, there's a way to address it. I'm talking about how spiritual warfare can confuse the mind, affect your mental health, and lead you down a path sometimes that is so depressing that ending your life becomes the only solution. That has been proven to actually happen with a lot of people who come out of suicide alive. Why? Because they don't go through it, or something happens that deters them from making it happen, or they get caught before basically their last breath. They get hospitalized, they get rescued. So I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask Arlette to see what her insight is. And here's one of them. Can you share your insights into the factors that contribute to suicidal ideation and behaviors? What are your insights? What do you think are some factors that contribute to the idea of suicide being great?
For suicide to being great, what do you mean by that? Sorry.
Like suicide being a good idea. What are some factors you think contribute to that in our society?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Carla.
Keep talking. I gotta connect the power.
I said it before. I think that unless you go through from a stage to not releasing everything that you have in your heart, you know, and not listening to your body basically saying, hey,
yes,
it's time to talk. It just makes suicide look as fun as it could be.
It makes it look attractive?
Of course. Why would I live in a life like this?
Okay.
When there is and I even heard somebody tell me once there's a heaven and there's so much peace in heaven. So why would I be here if there's peace in heaven?
There's more peace in heaven. Why not just end it?
Why not end it? And I think, wow, that's quite a thing.
That's pretty deep.
That's very deep.
Okay. All right. Here's my next question I want to ask. What are some of the warning signs that someone might be struggling with suicidal thoughts?
Warning signs. I think when a person is a little bit off, depressed, sad.
We would think, I have an interesting
angry.
Case. I have an interesting case actually. This happened to me when I was a kid, when I was 12. I had this friend, his name was Pedro. We were good friends. We were all in a group. We used to walk home from school every day. Pedro was an excellent guitarist. He was starting his band. His dad actually owns a music store of instruments. And he was so in love with music creation and playing guitar. He could like listen to Guns N' Roses and play it off the radio without the music sheets. By ear. He was 12 at the time. I remember we were walking home, and as we walk home in Portugal, you know, each one of us is going into their house. So the last two was always Pedro and I, because we lived at the end of the street. And Pedro was with his bicycle and his guitar strapped with his backpack against his, you know, on his body. And we're walking, we're talking. He's joking, he's happy. He actually said something that was kind of like making fun at me, poking fun at me, right? And I remember just giving it back to him like you do when you're 12-year-olds and you're friends, you know, since elementary school. I kind of just said something kind of stupid to him in a funny way. And he went off home and he was laughing from what I said. We were both laughing at it, like, you know, heavily laughing, not laughing like it was bad, laughing like, you know, it was just fun to always be around each other. That night, he killed himself. He hung himself.
Jesus.
Yeah, he hung himself in his bathroom. Houses in Portugal are made of concrete walls, so even in the shower curtain, like, you're able to use it to hang yourself. He did that, right? I would never know. I could never guess that that's what he was going to do. None of us could. We were all shocked. There was internal struggles related to the fact that I don't think, based on what he wrote,
You can live there. There could be a normal person walking around.
he didn't feel accepted by his parents. He didn't feel like he made his parents proud enough, because he didn't want to follow an academic life. He wanted to follow a musician's life. You know, when we talk about identity crisis, I think it stems so much more to who you prefer to have or not have in your life. I think when you look at identity when it comes to kids, is like, who do you want to be, like, professionally? Like, that's, I think, needs to be accepted a bit more, because he didn't feel like he made his parents proud, and that led to him wanting to just end it. His parents were out of town at that part of the day, and he had access to isolation at home. None of us in that group, when we found out, it's like none of us thought it was the same person, because his behaviors didn't shift.
Yeah, well, that's what
And
I'm
it wasn't.
saying.
There was no
It's
drugs
like
related
you
either.
You can't really determine a person who's going to take his life or not.
I believe it was the physical space he was in. The home made him remember the energy of what he felt with his parents. When he was outside of the home, he was happy. He was himself. He was a musician. He used to play in a lot of cafes that we would kind of like sit at after school with his band. But once he got home, I think the physical space. That's another thing why you got to consider your physical space, who you share it with, and also what's in your physical space, like gifts that people give you. Where do they come from? Like, what are they charged with? You know, because a lot of these things may be charged with something that you don't want around you.
Right.
That's why they say whenever you break relationships with people, like when you break relationships, get rid of the stuff that belongs to them, because you don't want their energy. You don't want their energy tagged or connected to you anymore, because that energy is going to keep reminding you of those feelings, of those thoughts. So my friend Pedro ended his life. To this day, I don't understand why, but I know that it was because he didn't feel like he made his parents proud. So another thing that for me, the period of my life that became my testimony, that I now talk about and say, yes, I was at the point of wanting to commit suicide. And I've helped a lot of, in the past 7 years, I've helped a lot and uncovered a lot of situations of people who were at the brink of that, because I recognize it, because I was there. It's almost like I can recognize, looking at a person, that their mind is at that point, because I know what that point looks like in a person's eyes, because I was there, right? So I understand that physical space and what you have in it can affect the record that's played in your mind. And that's the only reason I can come up with as to why my friend Pedro took his life. I believe it was because of whatever was in his house. I don't think it was just the fact of his parents not feeling proud of him. I believe whatever was in the home.
No, it's not about the items, the idolatry, the things. No, it all lies in your heart, Carla. All suicide. All
But we were
things
talking.
that
We were
happen-
talking about. Let me just not to interrupt you. Bring it back because what are some signs that someone might be struggling with suicide? And you mentioned some good ones, like they could be depressed. They
Yeah,
shift in
exactly.
behavior. And I basically
But
brought up that
it's like what you
I
were
was saying that there may not be a change. That doesn't
you
mean
can't see it.
Yeah,
can't
sometimes
see
you
it.
can't. Sometimes you can't see it because the change happens when the person's in that physical space that you may not even know that that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're a kid or an adult, sometimes the physical space plays such an impact on how it changes you that
Yeah.
sometimes you got to change it.
Yes.
Like maybe if Pedro
But
spent the night at a
that's
friend's house, that would
not
happen.
about the house or the apartment or the walls. It's what is in your heart.
It's in your heart.
It's in your heart, your body, your mind. Your mind can create a whole story in this house.
So
So if I come down and sit to you and tell you a whole story, you're going to wander around this whole house thinking, oh my God, who's living here and what entities are here?
so would you say like
There are many, many souls that can live in a house, that can stay here, that can change, that can. They're souls. Oh God, I'm
right? We're going into another.
another thing.
We're
Hold
going
on,
into
hold
another
on.
topic. Okay. So some signs can be like depression, could be shifts in behavior, but it could also be that you don't see it. It could also be you don't see it.
Carla, we have to do this again.
Why?
I know you like it, but we really have to do.
No, this
problem
is
with my dad.
this is wonderful. Don't respond to your dad.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna put me on with this too. No.
You have no choice now.
No, we do. we gotta do it again. Hold on. Oh my gosh.
Arlette, I'm not starting this from the beginning. That's an hour and 20 minutes.
Of
I need to do something for my life also today. Girl.
No. Listen, I'm gonna make a promise.
It's okay.
No. You're gonna give me those questions, and I'm gonna take them home, and I'm gonna pray about them. We're gonna do a very special.
No,
tomorrow.
you're running away from the topic. We
I
have
know.
excellent material here. I'm not gonna annihilate this now.
Oh my gosh. You have me recorded like with a bunch of.
It's still recording, by the way. It's still going.
Whoa.
I haven't stopped. This
No,
is a
no,
channel
we
about
got-
authenticity.
we
I
got-
have 3 more questions.
Oh boy.
I have 3 more questions. Are there any misconceptions about suicide?
Misconception.
Misconceptions.
What do you mean?
Like some people think it's a good way out. And then some people think that people who want to commit suicide are losers, or they want to commit suicide because they can't think of a better solution.
Well, I'm not here to measure and judge. There are tons of people. You're gonna put this on. Anyway.
Yes, I am. This
Oh
is
my
the channel
goodness.
about being authentic, so
Oh
I'm
my
authentically
gosh,
going
she's
to show you.
terrible. She is terrible.
My sound is kind of off, so hopefully it's recording what I'm saying.
No.
Because my wireless mic and my cord mic are supposed to work in sync with each other, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it does or if it doesn't. I'm learning this as I go. I just want to say that I did have the opportunity to record in a studio, but I chose to go at it solo. For reasons of being able to have the topics I want to have and have the comfort of my own space.
Because you have a purpose.
And because
and
I
a
have
reason.
a purpose
That's
and
why.
a reason. So, okay, misconceptions with suicide. Some people believe that people who think of suicide is because they can't think of a solution because they're not smart enough.
Compassion.
Compassion is necessary.
Compassion. I think that people. I'm gonna always come back to the point that you need to find your heart in order to understand.
But you say that. What does find your heart mean?
I love you.
You need to explain this.
she is
Explain
like
it.
that.
Explain it to our.
She's gonna put this live anyway.
Explain it to our people. What does finding your heart mean? Just in a brief explanation.
I think. Okay, suicide is not an easy word.
No.
It's a lifetime of events that have happened to you.
Yeah. But what if you're a kid?
Whether you're a kid or an
But
adult or whatever.
for a
However
kid,
it still lies in your
for a
heart.
kid, their lifetime is still like if I'm 11 years old, my lifetime is 11 years. It's still heavy. It could be a lot of heaviness.
heavy, and if you don't have somebody to talk about it, then you're going to be in that situation where you're going to have many thoughts. And
Right.
yes, if you're strong enough to surpass those thoughts, then you're going to be okay with it. You understand? There are
Okay.
people who have panic attacks and all these weird situations that you can be confronted
Do you think
with.
that's spiritually related? Do you think panic attacks have more to do with
Anxiety
spiritual
attacks,
health?
Anxiety
Spiritual?
attacks, panic attacks, what is it? The other one, they call it like that,
Mm-hmm.
but in reality, it's a time where you think, okay, if I'm stressed and I'm anxious about something, then I'm going to stop, and I'm going to find my balance. I'm going to figure out a way to surpass what my negative thoughts are.
Because
overcoming my positive.
Some
thoughts.
neuroscientists have concluded that panic attacks and things of that nature happen to people who have a hard time focusing their energy, like to meditate. Like they don't meditate. They don't practice a mental thought focus activity regularly.
Right.
So when they have a panic attack, sometimes the panic attack is related to thought patterns that they're not able to control.
Of course, your mind can create stories. Your mind can do immensity of things. You can have all these weird things going on in through your mind, and then what happens is that you believe it, and at the end, you're going through a very difficult path to understand what's real and what isn't real.
So
the
idea that a person that contemplates suicide is because they don't know any better, or they can't do better, or they can't.
They
come
have
up with
nobody
a solution.
to speak to. They have nobody to listen to.
They feel
one
alone.
of the major things of loneliness is not being able to be heard by somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody who needs just to sit down and listen to you. Take some time to just share your heart with a person, and that's it.
Okay.
Once you listen to that person, you can guide, you can show. You're not wouldn't say a teacher or a doctor to overcome whatever he's going through, but you sure have a way to take that moment and say, hey, maybe you need to do this or find help here or do something in order to get him out of the spam. And sometimes, like you said before, we don't realize the people who need help.
True.
They live their normal life, they drive their car, they're doing everything that they do, but in reality there's so much suffering inside. And when that happens, it is very difficult to determine that person is suicidal, right?
Right.
And for me, it's very special because I think, when I sit down with people, and I said before, when I stare at people, I may stare at you weird. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, why is she staring like this? Or why is she looking at this part or this, that? And it's because for me, in the spiritual side, I'm being shown everything of your life. From the minute that you died to the minute that you are today. And it's like God knows you, and He has to put somebody in front of you to help you out.
You mean from the moment that they're born to the moment to today?
There are times that you could. I had a lady that I sat down once with, and it was seeing her whole life and her conditions with her husband and what she did and what she didn't do, and why she did it, which was where God wanted to touch her heart.
Right.
You don't have to do a bunch of things in order for your husband to stay with you. Maybe you're over driving your husband crazy because of the things that you're doing. Okay. So there's a bunch of things that your life is highlighted by God. I don't know how to explain that part. It's very difficult for me to explain when your soul is presented. I was telling my friend actually the other day, I said, oh, I love this guy because he's so cute and everything, but I really didn't understand why that look that I had to always stare at him in a way.
Right.
And then I thought, okay, I'm going to pray about it, and I was praying about it, and it's that I love his soul.
Mm-hmm.
The sincereness of his soul, his heart and his soul want to be a kind of person, but because of a business transition or whatever it is, he has to be in a different way.
Right.
But God shows your soul.
So are you saying that your soul could be designed in one particular way because of how you live physically? It may actually cause you to appear to be a cruel person, or it may actually cause you to be a person that seems to be,
Your soul will always come out to say, I need help.
Right.
It's not that your soul is good, your soul is bad. Your soul just simply, when you have that necessity, your soul's going to come and say, I need help.
So
and somehow that helper is going to show up in your life. Perhaps he's going to save you.
Right.
Or perhaps he's not. But there's always going to be a person who's going to be sent to you. Earth angel, angel from above.
Right.
But somebody's always going to be with you at that moment.
Okay. So pay attention to that.
Yeah.
What do we say in relationship to people that, like, or about people that take their life too early, or take their life consciously? Because I'm not talking about the people that have deaths that are accidental because of a too much medication or something that happens in the hospital.
You're talking mentally, right?
I'm talking a person who consciously, based on how it unfolded, you know that they took their life consciously. What happened to their soul? Why didn't they seek help from someone else?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Does someone show up for them and maybe they don't notice?
What do you mean?
Does someone show up to help them and maybe they don't notice?
Somebody can come and tell you, well, you know what, Carla, I love you. And then suddenly, like your friend.
Yeah.
He took his life after having a happy day, and then suddenly he took his life.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it could have been that moment that he triggered or did something or said something that perhaps you didn't listen or you didn't saw. Not that it is your fault or anything.
Right.
But we lack to observe and to listen to the people who really need help. And we concentrate in those that we think, oh, she needs help, or he needs help. But in reality, it's not like that. I will leave those who really need help aside.
I will say this: that experience taught me that the next time, because there was kind of like a self-loathing joke that he did say, like he did bring it up after he pointed something out about me, and I just joked about it with him. But at that moment, I had the feeling of, invite him to have, because in Portugal after school, when you get home, you normally have like a snack, like a sandwich and a coffee.
Yeah.
It's like something that you do in Europe. And I did have the feeling of like, invite him to come and join you, because in Portugal, my grandparents have this big estate, so it's a 3-story house. So I was entering the house and I had that feeling of like, just invite him to come over, and have the snack with you, and you guys continue talking. But I didn't do it because I was like, but he's a boy, I'm a girl. I don't like him like that,
Yeah.
Now looking back, I wish I had done that, but I don't think I was meant to do that anyway, because you're not responsible for how other people conduct themselves in their life. I'm not responsible for that.
No.
But I had the feeling of inviting him.
That's that moment that I'm going to say God, because I used the word God. I love God very much, but that's the moment where God touches your heart and says,
After that, after
it's
that,
a nudge. I call it a nudge.
I remember it so poignantly, and it became tattooed in my brain as an event for me, because after that, I never not listened to when I get a nudge to do something extra for someone.
Yeah, it's that.
Because I didn't listen that day.
Those moments are the most precise moments where you hear that voice that says stop.
But that's also why when I had my moment in life, after so many circumstances were so heavy and difficult, I wasn't surprised that I didn't have anybody there for me. Because I remember my friend Pedro, he didn't have anybody there for him. See, sometimes we think life is surprising you with stuff, but if you look at it close enough, there's nothing to be surprised about. You're just telling yourself you're surprised.
You're just one part of the whole thing, and you don't know the circumstances that he's living or not living. I mean,
yeah.
It may be normally.
I believe that's why he played music, to stay out of the house.
The thing is that a person that is suicidal, a person who has depression, they always have signs. Signs are not that he lies down and he sleeps the whole day, because
it wasn't a one-time thing.
I can be a sleeper and I sleep the whole day. I love my bed. I have a romance with my bed. But like, for example, depression.
Sleeping is her sport.
That's my sport. Yeah.
It's also my sport. I love to nap. I'm a napper.
You're a napper. I love sleeping. No, but I think it's about in the other day. I think 2 days ago I posted something about the eyes. Okay. The eyes of a person reflects your soul.
Yeah, it does.
And your eyes can say a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And your eyes can, if you're measuring outside and you see everything negative, your soul is really negative.
Yeah.
But if your eyes are positive and you see everything that is the goodness, the kindness, you see the little details, it makes a difference. And when you look at a person,
you can tell.
You can tell.
If you look,
because their eyes show you their soul.
Yeah.
And if you take a quick look at a person to see how that person is doing, just look at their eyes. That's it.
You can tell. You can tell a lot. Also, how their eyes change when they're around you.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, if you want to question, you know, should I be in this situation or should I be helping this person? Just notice what's happening to their around their eye area. What's happening? If you know, and you could tell because your psyche is going to reflect back to you if that's positive or negative. You just have to listen to it. You know, start doing that enough times that eventually it becomes the default way of you moving. The first couple of times it may feel weird, but like you were saying, if you look at someone's eyes, you can't tell. Like my experience has led me to have uncomfortable conversation openers.
And it's, you know, they say that you can be a very happy person, and if a person smiles too much, that means because inside they're going really bad. That's
no,
it's not.
You can't. No,
you know,
that's not enough.
I could be the happiest person. I could be the saddest person. It's the same thing.
Look at them in their eyes. Have a conversation. Their eyes will tell you a lot. You know, if they look at you,
the eyes will let you see the negative and the positive, and how you see from your eyes towards the outside is how you are in the inside.
Is that part of the reason why sometimes people avoid looking someone else in the face because they know they lied?
Well, definitely, if a person doesn't look in your eyes, they're lying.
Like when a man can't look at you in the eye.
They're lying completely.
Or like if you bought too many shoes, you can't look your husband in the eye. Honey, those have always been there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we gotta get rid of the misconceptions. There should be no misconceptions about suicide. I don't see why there should be misconceptions. You know, it's negative across the board. There's no such thing as a smart person, a less smart person, a person with everything in life. Actually, one of my clients, it was like very wealthy, financially better off than I am, and one of the conversation openers I had with him was actually, you know, why don't you stop lying and tell me how many times you thought of killing yourself? And I remember this guy looked at me like as if I had just flipped a card in his mind of something he was trying to hide.
Yeah.
And then he was like, how did you know? I was like, it's all over your eyes. I've been there. I know what that looks like.
But that's the thing, is that you have gone through, and that's what we were speaking about before. It's your testimony.
Because sometimes even when you're getting therapy,
know when a person has gone through what.
But this is the problem with therapists, because even when you're getting therapy, like this guy was telling me a list of like 10, it was about 10 things, maybe it was less than that, but he was giving me a list of things that were problems that he wanted to fix, right?
Excuse me.
Making me believe as his life coach that we're going to focus, that's what we need to focus on. As he's telling me this, and I'm just like forcing him to look me in the eye in the conversation, I come to realize those are just like external excuses that he thinks are problems. The problem really is he's been thinking about killing himself. He thinks fixing this is going to shut that off.
What was it? When was it with there was a time also that people would throw themselves in front of trains.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the financial situation or because of that. And it's stressful. I have to say, you know, whether you're in a financial moment or...
Because we worship money. We need to stop worshiping money.
Or whatever the circumstances, you know, there's always a good outcome. There's always somebody who's going to help you or do something for you. So, yeah. You know, there's always... I think that, for example, that what is it? This person, he had been abused when he was younger, and then suddenly, with this abuse, it took him years and years and years, and then after, when he was like 30 something or 20 something, he wanted to take his life. You know, it's because you don't have a way to talk or speak or say the things that they are there.
And a lot of times, the reason somebody wants to take their life is for reasons that, like for them, it's such big problematic issues, but for an outsider that hears about it, you're like, that can be, did you ever consider a different perspective? Did you ever consider trying something else or asking someone for help? Not help with like not thinking about suicide, but did you ever consider asking someone for the help related to what you need that led you to think that that's a solution?
Right.
Because sometimes people think they're going to like lose their home, for instance, because they lost their job. And now they start to think, oh my God, I want to take my life. But then you have a whole set of people who depend on you maybe not financially. They depend on you emotionally.
But I think that doesn't matter, because if the minute that you want to take your life and you've decided you're going to take,
You don't even think about those people. That's
No,
the
you
truth.
don't think about
about
anybody.
anyone. You know what you think about? That the fact that the weight of all of that thought
It's
pattern
going to
is
be
off.
gone.
Yeah, and it's
it's
not.
going to be gone.
Actually, I'm going
That
to tell
solves the
you.
problem, and then suddenly all the family is
I can
involved
say,
in all the debts and things like that. So
I'm going to tell you that the thought pattern that you think is the reason why you want to end it does not disappear. On the other side, you still have to deal with it. That's another thing.
yeah,
That's a conversation for another day. When you physically die, you don't stop existing. Like what you don't deal with here, your spirit will carry on to the other side. So that thought pattern, you'll have to deal with it on the other side. The difference is you can't come back here.
it's the reason why you need to leave everything here. I mean,
Yeah.
find your forgiveness.
Natural
find your-
death is way better, whether it happens because of an accident or a shooting or you just die naturally out of health causes or old age. Is natural death is way better than taking your life and then having to deal with something. Imagine having to deal with a
Well,
problem.
nowadays, what is it that you're sick and you can do euthanasia?
Yes, but
I
that's
don't, I don't think here in the States yet, or is it possible?
I don't know if in the States they allow it. They allow it in a couple of countries where when you're sick with cancer or like terminal illnesses, you can sign off to end your life.
Mm-hmm.
But those are situations where it's leading towards death anyway. But again, that's where your faith comes into play. You know, I also have a friend who dealt with a very terminal illness, and because their faith was, this is not the end of my life, the illness disappeared. She got 100% cured.
Right.
So, and I've had more than one person actually that I know that happened to. So sometimes the faith you have in terminating your life, try to apply it with living longer. You know, we're not meant to control how long we live or don't live on the earth. We're not. We
No.
can't control that.
No.
We're not supposed to. We don't. We're not supposed to click the button and end the game. That's not how it works. And I think people struggle with accepting that because people want to be in control. That's another thing. That's another misconception with suicide. You're in control of the end of your life, not somebody else. But how is that being in control if you're mentally not able to stop yourself from it? You see how that's a misconception? Yeah. So my next question is, what role does mental health play?
Well, as I said before, mentally you have to be. There's sometimes that you have to just be hard on yourself mentally and think, you know, this is not going to happen. These thoughts are not real. Rebuke.
Yeah.
What I call for me, you know, when I pray, I think, okay, I'm going to rebuke. I'm going to rebuke all my thoughts. I'm going to put everything in order.
When you say rebuke thoughts, you're talking about like
I have a power and I have the authority from my Father in heaven to say, I am fine.
Right.
And I deserve this and I need this and I'm in an authority to say, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And whatever my thoughts are, they're yours, God. You know, and if you have anything for me, send me an angel, send somebody to help me out at this moment because I need it. But I have that power to put structure in my life.
Okay.
To find my path, my way, my everything. And at that particular moment to rebuke any sort of spirit.
So does mental health awareness help with that? Help like ease or bring awareness to suicide mentality to people who are suicidal?
I do believe so. I think that, for example, you know, it's different things. Like, for example, veterans. Talk about veterans here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people who come back from the war who are going through all these issues. They also, you know, they have gone through so much that they come back and they think, okay, this life is, I don't belong here. I don't correspond here.
Right.
I want to go back to where I was before.
They can't seem to find assistance even to like have a livelihood.
Exactly.
The economy has now changed.
Everything has changed. So they come to the point where they think, well, I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
I don't need to be here. And then what do you think? Okay. So there has to be some sort of mental assistance.
But that brings up also a different, like we're talking about spiritual warfare. There's a different type of spirit that comes up with this. The spirit of disappointment. No, the spirit of disappointment.
Yeah.
Because they're disappointed
that they're not able to go back and do the things that they used to do.
But they're also disappointed that they served their country. They did what they did in good faith, that they were doing what's right to protect the freedom of this people of this country to come back here and then be treated like it was nothing.
Exactly.
That's disappointing.
And you have this cool code, honor, respect, morals, values.
Yeah.
And then what do you have left? Nothing.
So the spirit of disappointment can lead you to suicidal thoughts.
Right.
Just
And then you have to take that moment and say, I'm going to defeat that spirit. I'm going to rebuke it. And whatever spirit that is confronting you negatively, in a negative way,
right.
rebuke it. I'm going to rebuke this because I am not this person. I am not going to live this. I have been here sent back from wherever I was to live my purpose, to show other people that I, was in a war and I did this and I did that, and people should take a notice of that. People don't take a notice. I was here in this memorial park here in Plantation, that there's a war park, not a memorial park.
Right.
I had never seen it. It's very small. It says take a walk, make a round, just
right.
to remember.
What did you notice?
Remembrance.
What did you notice?
Beautiful. It's a beautiful little tiny park that has a memorial wall.
Well, here's my question. So we've identified 3 spiritual energies that are related to taking people down the spiral of suicide: guilt, shame, and disappointment.
Yeah.
If all of these 3 are combined together, it could be a pretty heavy mental weight for a person to deal with. So it's not that a person just wakes up with a suicide idea. It's a build-up.
It's a build-up and something that you have to release from your heart. But I also think that a good suggestion is that if you have something that you've built up in your heart and that it is negative for you or was negative, take it, write it down, and make something positive. Make a story, write about it, make a purpose for it. What are you going to do? Help other people with that situation. Do something with it.
Because some people that have that, guilt, shame, and disappointment, they may be like, oh, but it's my fault that I have it. Like, I made the choices that led to that. I don't even think that fault is at play. I think people need to stop feeling like it's your fault. Even if it's your fault, it doesn't matter.
Even if it's your fault or not your fault, you take what you have and you can create something with it.
Yes.
That's where I'm trying to say. Like, if I have gone through a divorce, I'm going to do something about divorce and the reasons why I get divorced. And I'm going to make something of it.
Yeah.
Because there is something that I learned from that moment, from my marriage, from my divorce, to becoming single, to living alone, which is my situation.
Speaking of which, my next episode, well, not my next one, but one of my upcoming episodes is going to be about, we want to erase shame from divorce.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of people who get divorced, and even this culture here, when you go to fill out application, they don't ask you if you're single anymore. It's married, unmarried, or a widow, or married, divorced, widow. There's no option for you to put single. You have to let them know that you're unmarried or you're divorced. And I feel like you're trying to make people feel ashamed for something that, quite honestly, they're entitled to a new identity once divorce is done. You're single. Divorce is not an identity. That's what I'm trying to say. You're single. When you're not married with someone, you've gotten divorced.
Okay, depends.
The title divorce doesn't. The fact that society makes you carry the title of a divorcee or divorced or divorce, I feel like is only adding to people having more on the balance of shame in their mind. And I feel like that needs to be cut out. Yeah. I've spoken to many women that feel this way. Not just friends, but women, even a few people that I life coach that were divorced. They felt ashamed to admit they were divorced. As a matter of fact, one of them preferred to stay married and be separated because they didn't want to have the title divorced. They didn't even care about their losing half of their whatever to pay their person. It was the fact that they didn't want paperwork or socially to be considered divorced. Why? Not because, and it wasn't even what people were thinking. Like, as you get to coach a person, you go deeper into what bothers them. It was because they were bothered by how the idea of divorced is.
Yeah.
For them. And why did it feel that way for them? Because of the shame that society tags onto it. Regardless of what culture, you could be from Hispanic culture and European culture,
divorced.
even American culture that tries to be so free and be who you want to be. There's still a shame attached to divorce in this country.
I don't mind whether it's divorced or married. I'm divorced.
But you were saying how that can cause you to be disappointed. Like, divorce can cause you to be disappointed.
Disappointed in no, not because I have to mark a paper saying that I'm
But
divorced.
it's true. It does disappoint you.
Well, if you go through a marriage,
Kim Kardashian said that her biggest, not regret, but her biggest disappointment for her is the feeling that she has that her marriage with Kanye West failed. And she's super successful, and she admitted, to me, that was my biggest disappointment. My marriage failed with him. I really didn't want it to fail. Why should she feel disappointed when she did everything she could probably to try to stay married? But
it happens.
You know?
It happens. It's part of destiny. It's part of life.
Exactly. But the disappointment...
Maybe she has a different path, a different thing to do.
Yeah. But disappointment is part of the equation that can...
You can't always... I don't know the word for that. You can't always have what you want.
Exactly.
It is based on necessity. What your necessity is and what your purpose in this life is.
Because sometimes I think people don't even realize the list of stuff that you want isn't even sometimes the best for you. It isn't even the best for you. I had this one friend that I helped to like change their entire life, to be able to have, access to a new country.
No, I think that basically
and they
when you get married, you're like giving in everything. And you try to do your best effort.
But wait,
you have your family.
When I was giving my friend access to being able to have a completely new life, it was on the list of stuff that they wanted. They're the ones that wanted that. Turns out that when they got it and they were experiencing it, they didn't even like it. They ran away from it. And that's what upset me the most. I didn't get upset because I took it personal to me. I got upset because it was like, dude, that was on your list of what you wanted.
Yeah.
Then I realized what you want in your list is not even good for you. It's not even good for you. It's not even truly what you want. We need to stop thinking that what we want, if it doesn't happen, it hasn't happened by the time I'm 40.
It's about your heart and your needs.
Exactly. I think what he needs is to be, drinking hot chocolate, hugging trees.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be cruel. But it's just like, if there's something you want in your life and you think that that's what you want for the setup of your life to be happy, I'm here to tell you that no, it's not. So be very careful when you're going into what you're thinking that you want, if it involves other people, because you will emotionally hurt other people. That's where compassion, consideration comes in. And there's no need to do that if you understand that what you want is not 100% good for you. True. So that means if what you want is suicide, see how it goes back? Like suicide is not good for you. Obviously, it's not good for you. But what I'm saying is the people who are in that mindset of thinking that ending it is an answer, they honestly think that that's good for them.
Here's a question for you. So what made you come out of your suicide point?
The car accident I had, that God basically took my spirit and told me flat out, this is not how we do things. I flat out heard him say that to me. This is not how we do things. And once he gave me a chance to be back here again, you never see life the same way. I literally had whatever created everything tell me this is not how we do things. That was the first sentence I heard. But I came back with the ability to recognize in other people when they're considering doing that. And it's very hurtful because with that also comes seeing why they went there. Sure. That's very painful. Because sometimes it's
a good thing that you have that point. It's a good testimony.
So I have one friend that told me, "Oh, I never thought about it. I've never thought about suicide." I know it's a lie. The people who tell you the most they've never thought about it are the ones lying to you. They've had moments that they've thought about it, even if it's one time. And I'm not saying that because I want to make it like give it attention or make it like a trend. I'm saying that so that people who do think about it and know that just because you think about it once doesn't mean you're a horrible person. Because the spiral will start with you thinking about it once as an option, and now you feel bad that you thought about it once. And now that guilt and shame attached to you thinking about it once goes to the second day, the third day, the fourth day, when something doesn't go right. Remember, you thought about ending your life? Who would think that? Why would you do that? Oh my God, you should feel horrible about yourself for thinking that. You should actually end your life because you're only going to think about it. You're only going to think about it again.
And those are the thoughts that come up to the mind of every single person because it's like.
And that's where the spiritual warfare comes in. Usually
But then again, spiritual warfare is what you have lived. in your life, in your heart, what is settled in your heart that you have not forgiven, that you have not given up.
Yeah.
It goes up to your mind. Your mind creates all these thoughts.
Starts to confuse you.
And it confuses you. And then at the end you think, Jesus, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
You know? And it happens. It happens.
Well, I think mental health is important. It does help people like learn certain things to, regulate their thought patterns, change their mindset. But I don't think mental health awareness is enough. It's good that society tries to put that in the forefront now as a trend,
I think
but it's not enough.
the word mental health that everybody puts out, go down on your knees and pray.
Yeah.
Find your balance in God.
Dr. Newberg,
at the beginning of the whole session here, you spoke about it, that says that religion or faith is being lost, and faith is what people need at this moment. Have that moment to say, I'm able to move mountains, I can move a tree. And if you can move mountains and a tree, you can move your thoughts.
Dr. Newberg, the neuroscientist I mentioned, he wrote the book How God Changes the Brain. He did a study with 100 subjects, 100 patients over a course of a couple years. Not just for this book, over time as a neuroscientist, he came to realize that people that worship and pray regularly, even if it's once or twice a week, he noticed that in their brain, an area between their frontal lobe and their limbic system, there is an area called the anterior cingulate. It's a collection of neurons that balances your emotions with your logic.
Yeah.
People who worship and pray have such a strong action in their anterior cingulate neurons that it does not allow them to be not that allow them, but it suppresses their feelings of fear and sadness and hopelessness, because their logic and reasoning is basically creating it's balanced.
It's balanced.
And because it's balanced, they're able to stay on a path of compassion and peace. They can identify, actually, the patients that he was dealing with could identify compassion and peace and how to apply it more than the patients who didn't worship and didn't pray. So your brain gives, actually, there's segments of your brain neurons that become strengthened with worship and prayer. Just like your muscles when you go to the gym get stronger.
Exactly. And the more you pray, the more you elevate, the more you dedicate to God, it becomes a balance.
So I think the
you
mental...
come to a point that when you're so elevated that you feel this freedom and happiness, and it's hard to explain this euphoric...
Does it make you immune to negative situations?
It does. Doesn't mean that you don't live them.
You live them.
But you do live them. There's trials, there's tribulations every day.
But you don't identify them the same way anymore.
You don't. No.
That's good.
It's like when they take out the power of a house. I think the other night I was writing about suicide and the power went off. Hopefully there was a 3-minute tribute about the person I was writing about. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's beautiful. They turned off the light for him.
Yeah.
3 minutes of silence and the light came back on. But, you lie down on your bed, and I just fell asleep. In other moments, you think, oh, my heart is going to beat. I'm going to be so scared. Oh, my gosh, they turn off the light. I'm not going to be able to, oh, my gosh.
Right.
And you start thinking, and you start opening. For me, it's a key prayer that, says, hey, I'm fine. You're with me. I'm going to bed. And I fell asleep. But it's such a beautiful moment to understand that there's such a euphoric, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but such an emotion when you're connected to God, when you're in that prayer and you elevate and you think, wow, there's nothing in this world that can touch
So
me.
you're not immune to negative situations.
Of course not.
You just don't define them.
Every day you have people that are going to come and confront you, that they're going to say something negative. The energies of the people who are surrounding you. And the minute that happens, you open your prayer and you start thinking, you know what, God, this is yours. It's not mine.
Okay. All right. Here's another question I have, because we did talk about how spiritual health. We've talked enough about how spirituality helps.
I think mental health. I'm thinking mental health. Yeah, go pray.
Because mental health, they keep it.
So bad. I'm so bad in that, but hey,
mental health has become because of psychologists and therapists. Mental health has become a trend, which is great. A lot more awareness is given to that. I think is wonderful, because they don't want to tag any kind of religious movement to it.
Yeah.
But a lot of neuroscientists and people who work with the specialty of the brain, they've come to notice that you need to do some form of a mental exercise regularly, because the brain's a muscle.
Of course.
And your brain, there's segments that if you stimulate them enough, it gets to the point, it is very hard for you to fall into depression and anxiety.
I think that if you
because
those
segments are not activated because you have things balancing it out.
Of course, your thoughts are your thoughts. You think about one thing, you think about the next thing, and then you have your whole mess. And you take one of those what do you call those little games of Scrabble or word finding? Get your brain busy. Children before used to ages ago. I was raised, and I didn't have the time to think. My parents kept me so busy. We were in violin, guitar, ballet, tennis, and we were running all day long around in different activities. And yes, there are activities that are free that you don't have to pay, right? That you can subscribe, and others that are paid and you can't sometimes pay and you can't go, but you have the ways to find out for those programs. And you don't have time to think about not even taking a gun to go kill people or doing stupid things that people do because they have free time in their hands.
They have a lot of idle time.
Yeah.
To act on, the worst thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. To think about all the negativity and what I'm going to do with it.
Well, I also will say that.
And I use the word guns and shooting.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it's happening in our culture. We can't run away from it.
No.
And social media only makes that more, knowledgeable to people.
Right.
People have knowledge of it through social media. And that leads me to my next question. Like, how does social media and internet play an impact when it comes to suicide?
I think heavy. I think it plays a big role.
People compare themselves too much.
I like Facebook because, for example, I've been connected to children, to my childhood friends.
Right. Yes.
I found a lot of people that I didn't think I was going to find, and it's given me space to write or things like that. But then again, you have the points where, for example, one of the friends of one of my sons got involved into this thing about that they had to tie a knot on their neck, and it was like a whole suicidal game. Basically,
For
they
real?
were choking and you fainted because you did something in your neck.
Oh my God.
So until somebody figured it out and took it out. But there's so many of those type of things that they put like as games, and they're not even games.
Like an innocent little game, but we
Yeah,
know
but
someone. Out of 100 people, some of them are not going to come out, breathing on the other side if they're playing a suicidal game like that. That's dangerous.
And it harms. So I think that social media, having telephones, all these things are wonderful.
Right. But we need to monitor ourselves with it.
Yeah. Have more control about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the word control because, for God, control doesn't exist, but you have to, understand that they're not good for you. I mean,
self-love in this case would cause you to have self-discipline how you use it.
Exactly.
You know, because social media has
created. There's parents that don't give cell phones to their children until they're 15, 16 years old.
That still happens. Yeah, my kid didn't get a cell phone until she was 11.
Yeah.
11. It used to be mine until then if she needed anything.
Does it affect? It does affect.
I noticed.
I think that if you can make social media to be more positive and take away all the negativity there is, because there are negative things that are going on.
What about the constant comparison, like people comparing themselves physically to
Bullying.
other people?
Bullying is a terrible thing. People can make up Facebooks. Nowadays, you can get a copy of your Facebook, and people can ask money. I recently had a call from a good friend that lives in West Palm Beach. They said they were asking me for $20,000 for me to set you free. Set me free from what?
And it sounds authentically like it's you.
And she's like, you were screaming. It was your voice. And I'm thinking, no, this is not me. I'm alive and I'm home.
Artificial intelligence.
How can you do
Artificial
that?
intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the next thing. I don't think artificial intelligence is great, but I don't think people are realizing they can utilize it. As a matter of fact, cases in Brazil with social media linked with children and young teens, where people pose as celebrities, use artificial intelligence to filter their footage as if they are a celebrity, create a whole social media account. The kid thinks that they're interacting with their favorite celebrity, their idol. They're sharing pictures and what have you, and sometimes it's compromising things, right? Because they think, oh, they're sharing it with someone who's an actor, and they're gonna put them on their next video clip or the next series. So they send, I don't know, a bikini shot. Like I have this one friend, she's a detective in Brazil, and she was receiving, not that she was receiving, but this one girl that was part of the investigation was sending to this actress that she thought she was best friends with on Instagram, sending her pictures of herself, taking clothes off. Like she was, going from having a fully clothed look to just being in her underwear. Turns out a few weeks later, this celebrity person unveils themselves on live video. There wasn't a celebrity person. They were using artificial intelligence. It was a 60-year-old man.
Wow.
Who then threatened the girl, saying, if you don't continue doing what I want online, I'm going to share all of this footage I have of you with everyone at your school and all your contacts and everyone on Instagram, and send it to your school as well. But the girl was humiliated. The girl went into a deep depression. I mean, it was like night. And
then it ends up in suicide.
Yeah, forget night and day. She was a different planet. The girl became a different planet, a dark planet, until the parents realized what was going on, and the girl finally had another friend who got involved and was able to bring it out of her. And that's when my friend detective got involved. Go to find out this guy is part of a ring that was doing this with several children.
Wow.
So even now, social media, internet definitely play a role. Some of this stuff is not even real. Some of these contacts aren't even real people. They're pretending to be someone else to get your kid. But even if they're real people, some of these people are posting stuff on social media that's filtered, that's altered, and that's posed a certain way, and you're trying to compare yourself to it, and the comparison is making you feel like you're not good enough. So now we have the spirit of not good enough.
Yeah.
That's another spirit, you see? These energies and these thought patterns are not just thought patterns and energy. That's what I'm trying to present here in this show, in this episode. It's spiritual warfare. It's a conglomeration of spiritual energy that its purpose is to have someone either turn evil or end your life. We don't know what the purpose is. I don't know what everyone's purpose is, but I could only say it's because you need to be ended for whatever particular reason that is. Maybe your purpose is to, I don't know, find a cure for, I don't know, a better stent for a heart, for surgery. I don't know. We don't know what that is. But definitely it's a good purpose.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody with an evil purpose be put through the ringer to the point that they want to end their life. As a matter of fact, when you're evil and you want to go good, that's when you're attacked the most. You're never attacked when you're evil. Everything goes your way.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but it goes your way a lot much easier. If you notice, that's why people who have been in power, who are evil, who make humans do evil things, or who have an evil agenda, you'll notice how easily they get in power.
Okay.
We have people in history like that. You guys know it. I'm not going to say it. All right. Here's my last question, because we got to always think about society as more than just adults. Can schools assist or play a role in preventing suicide?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Why do you think so? Since you worked in education for like 17 years.
There's so many activities that you can, I think between the spiritual and the physical side, there are activities that you can find out whether a child is okay or not okay.
What about demeanor in the classroom? Like the teacher's demeanor. What do you think about that?
Demeanor is putting down, I think, right?
No, demeanor means their behavior. The teacher, how they are in the classroom.
I think teachers should be, teachers are trained in order to receive the children psychologically and I do believe that there's activities that teachers can do, and the attention and listening, their span of what they're doing in the classroom can make a difference.
Yes.
A big, huge difference. As a teacher, I have worked with little children to adults, and it's amazing just by listening, the information you can get from them, how as a teacher you can transform them.
Would you say in order to listen as a teacher, it requires you going off your agenda?
It does.
And that's the problem. A lot of teachers don't want to go off their agenda.
Teachers, you have to work. As a teacher, you work with parents. And it has to go both ways in order for things to work out for that child. Right. And I think teachers can offer great opportunities. I had wonderful teachers. I had teachers who made me a teacher, basically. I had teachers who listened to me in all the aspects, who gave me a purpose.
Right.
They found purpose for me. They would say, hey, Arlette, you can do this. And suddenly I was enrolled in something. And then I had another teacher. And somehow, I don't know why they did that, but I had wonderful teachers who did that. They just wanted to help, I guess.
What I have found in my teaching experience, because I've been in the business of it for 20 years, is that in order to listen and in order to save someone sometimes, or actually all the time, I have had to veer off the agenda in order to make that possible.
But there are times that you just sit down and you have something planned for the day, and that plan just transforms itself into
someone comes
else.
in and you can see and sense that something is way off.
Right.
The only way you don't sense it is if you're selfish and you just think of yourself. That's another thing. That's why compassion is so important. So yes, I do think that schools play a big role in prevention when it comes to young kids, because you can provide the space to be a person to listen to them.
Children don't want to be locked up and have to be running and be scared. And if you're able to identify that beforehand, because anger and all these spirits that come upon a child in their heart comes because of the circumstances.
And then it makes them behave a certain way.
Yeah, because you're living the
and that's not even them. That's not even them.
Exactly. So, whether you can confront and start a new system, not a new system, but like
a space. You provide a space that they feel like, you know what?
Or listen to them, because if
you actually listen.
If a child comes back and says, hey, I don't get along with this teacher, provide them the opportunity to move is necessary. And the reason, not because, there must be circumstances and evaluations to do that, but because in their heart they become so angered, so irritated, and it ends up they graduate and they go with that anger all the way to the end, and then who knows what else happens from there,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's my way of thinking.
So this has been a deep sharing of information.
A very sincere sharing of every single
very
moment.
Sincere sharing, because suicide is a topic that
it's an immense
it's an immense topic, but people want to escape from talking about it. It's almost like they want to just put a poster or show a little clip about it and make it like, oh yeah, we're putting the awareness out there to help people and who they can contact, but they're not really saying, you know what, this has happened to me. I've been there, I've experienced it, and this is why it's not an option, or these are the reasons why it's happening. I think when we understand the reasons why we have certain thoughts, such as suicide, the reason why we have them, and we understand that those reasons are not unique to one person, they happen almost to everyone, we are more likely to find a way out of the spiral of suicide. That's why I wanted to do this episode. Because when you realize, because this happened for me, when I realized that other people that look at my life and think that my life is at a certain level, and I'm looking at their life like, that's so much better. And then I'm basically seeing we have the same problems, or actually mentally I'm better off than you are, and you have financially more than I have. Do you know what I'm saying? So since they're financially more than I am, for instance, but my mental pattern is at a level that they need help from, they're paying me for in that situation, I realize, well then, you know what, my life is not as bad as I'm thinking it is, because look at that situation.
Yeah, exactly. If you take a look at what everybody else is,
knowledge is power.
It's 2 days ago that somebody said something, and I thought, well, if you think that your situation is the worst situation,
you should know this.
You should know and look at other situations.
Knowledge is power. I don't think it's not about having a position of power.
It's not about knowledge. It's about testimony. If you don't come out with your story, who knows?
Exactly.
Who's ever going to know?
Save a soul, you save a world, because every person is a world in themselves.
Exactly.
So if what you have can save one person or change one person's mind for the better, then your purpose is already worth it. And you're not going to know or give yourself the chance of that if you just decide to pull the plug and it's not even your time. You can't determine your time if you accept that you have a purpose, and you can't determine your time and pull the plug if your idea of that is to put an end to everything, because when you go to the other side, you carry it with you. It's just you don't got a chance to fix it because you're on the other side already. And while you're here, you can fix it, you can repair it, you can renovate it, you can renew it, and you can help other people out of it. So thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Love Tribe. Spiritual warfare and suicide is more prevalent than we know, but I hope that some of this enlightened you and helps you understand a little bit better that, guilt, shame, disappointment, and feelings of not being worthy are not just feelings. They're actual spiritual energies that try to come in and confuse your mind and put thought patterns in you that make you think that sometimes ending your life is the best idea. But the truth is, it's not. It's a trick. It's a trick. You have to outwit that, and you outwit that by knowing this, by knowing some of this that we shared with you, and turning your life into a testimony instead of a story that had an end that wasn't supposed to have an ending. So I love you. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm going to put some information about Arlette and her books in the Show More section. Don't forget to check that out, and a little writing of what we talked about to maybe help you understand better everything we said. But I love you for watching. I love you for being here, and I look forward to our next episode together. Until then, have a good one.
Bye.